If you were ready for a slow news cycle, the Chargers just flipped that script in a hurry. 4 big storylines landed at once. One move on the board could change how Justin Herbert reads the field. One weird little message could tug a whole market and split the Bolt fam in half. One draft path looks straightforward until you notice the downside hiding in the corner. And one ranking feels like a shot for no reason, but it might be the exact kind of heat this locker room can turn into fuel. Stay with me, because there's a piece of this that's still flying a little under the radar. There's a world of difference between we improved the offense and we finally unlocked Herbert. That's the real conversation. Because there's talk floating around that if it lands the way it's being lined up, forces defenses to play us differently. Not in a vague way, in a real, on Sundays way. Tempo changes. The willingness to go for it on fourth changes. And that awful feeling that when the game gets tight, the offense is always a beat late, that starts to fade. Hold that for a second, because the most important part isn't even the name. It's the fit. It's the concept. It's what that play-calling style does to defenders. Pre-snap motion that makes a linebacker hesitate. A look that screams run and turns into a quick pass. Route combinations that put a DB in conflict for half a second. In this league, half a second is the difference between a throwaway and 6. So yeah, there's real buzz about the Chargers lining up Mike McDaniel as the next offensive coordinator. And I'll be blunt about it. Even with a subpar finish the last 2 seasons in Miami, as a play caller, he's still in that elite tier. If this happens, it's the clearest shot the Chargers have had at maximizing the full Herbert package. Monster arm, fast processing, and that ability to punish a defense the moment it blinks. Now, the part that has me leaning forward in my chair, literally, is the idea that McDaniel might not show up by himself. The hope is Frank Smith comes with him. Same Frank Smith who used to coach the Chargers offensive line and who's been McDaniel's offensive coordinator in Miami. And if you're wondering why Chargers fans should care that much, it's simple. 2025 wasn't about we didn't have enough talent at receiver. It was about whether Herbert could make it through games upright. The offensive line got hammered, and the result was sacks, hits, and a wild card game that still stings. Losing Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, that was brutal. And when Bradley Bozeman and Mekhi Becton didn't hold up, Herbert was basically living with pressure in his lap. Back in 2021, when Frank Smith was here, protection looked different, flat out better. The Chargers finished among the teams that allowed the fewest sacks in the league. He knows how to build something functional up front, and he teaches the stuff people don't tweet about. Hand placement, timing on combo blocks, communication when defenses start running stunts. That's not highlight material, but it's how you survive a season. So, let me ask you, picture it. If the front office replaces the right pieces inside, especially in the interior where pressure can wreck a quarterback's day, what does Herbert look like with a scheme that creates easier separation and a line that actually holds up? Harbaugh ball with rhythm, creativity, and real answers in 3rd and long. Sounds like a dream, but it's close enough to feel like it could actually happen. And keep your eyes open, because if that first domino drops, the next one might make even more noise. Because while everyone's still digesting what McDaniel could mean, one little thing set the fan base off. You know how this goes. When certain names start shifting, even without anything official being said, the chatter gets loud. And this time, the chatter came from a place that feels unlikely, but from someone who understands exactly what kind of offense could be built in Los Angeles. Playoff losses hurt. No debate. Be honest, with how banged up this roster was, nobody inside that building truly treated 2025 like the Chargers' Super Bowl year. It was a year to get through, evaluate hard, get healthy, add pieces, and take another swing. And that pivot started with moving on from Greg Roman. The offense felt predictable and heavy, and when the moments got big, It looked like it needed everything to be perfect just to function. If McDaniel takes over, that tone changes fast. But a scheme doesn't catch passes. And that brings us to the uncomfortable but real topic: Herbert's targets. The Chargers have solid pass catchers. Ladd McConkey is steady and smart. Quentin Johnston had his highs and lows, but looked improved. Trey Harris flashed. And when Keenan Allen is right, he's still Keenan Allen. But in January, when the whole field shrinks and every mistake is magnified, who's the guy that makes the defense tear up its plan? That's why this social media post hit the way it did. It was short, cryptic, almost like a joke. Tyreek Hill posted something along the lines of, "Mike to the Chargers, And instantly, Chargers fans started letting their minds run. Yeah, Hill likes to mess around online, but timing matters. And he knows exactly what McDaniel helped him become in Miami. A nightmare matchup, chunk plays on demand, production at the top of the league. That connection is real. So even if nothing happens, it plants a thought. If McDaniel lands in LA, do certain players start viewing the Chargers differently? Is that move guaranteed? Not even close. The money is complicated, and the team has spent a lot of draft capital at wide receiver over the years. But the better question isn't, will it happen? It's, does it make sense? And strategically, it does. Hill changes coverages before the snap. He creates space for everyone else without even touching the ball. And in the AFC West, we've watched the damage he can do. So yeah, seeing him on the other side for once would feel pretty nice. Maybe it stays a rumor. Maybe it never gets past social media noise. But the fact it's even in the air tells you something. If McDaniel comes in, the pull around this offense changes. Stick with me, because what's next isn't rumor. Once you start drawing up an offense, the next question is simple and kind of ruthless. Who's he working with? This is where smart ideas become a real turnaround, or just another off-season fantasy. And at least on paper, the Chargers' plan is starting to look almost annoyingly logical. McDaniel by himself wouldn't fix everything. What decides whether this offense takes the jump is the foundation: offensive line, interior protection, rhythm, staying out of third and long, and actually owning the red zone. And the latest 3-round mock draft lines up with that thinking, starting with a name that would probably let Herbert sleep better at night. Olivavega Ioane, a guard from Penn State, mocked to the Chargers at pick 22. If Ioane actually falls there, that's the kind of pick that won't win social media, but it wins games in December. Plenty of people view him as the best interior offensive lineman in this class. Strong, technical, consistent, not the type to get you beat with careless mistakes. And when you look at the Chargers' recent history with risky interior line bets, the lesson is pretty clear. Reliability is priceless. Then round 2 swings a different direction. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, a safety from Toledo. And I can already hear it. Safety? Seriously? But modern defenses live on versatility, and that's what this prospect brings. Big, physical, can play deep, can slide into the slot, can move around. It's the same kind of flexibility that makes Derwin James such a weapon. And we've seen Elijah Molden benefit from that type of role too. And depth matters. Tony Jefferson is a free agent. RJ Mickens is exciting, but you can't build a whole room on hope alone. Then round 3 goes back to the trenches. Ahmad Moten Sr., a defensive tackle from Miami. That's a statement. The Chargers aren't trying to survive. They're trying to control the physical side of games. Teair Tart is a free agent, and we've already seen how the team approaches spending at defensive tackle. Jamari Caldwell has potential, but you still need more juice and more youth in that room. Moten brings production, 9 sacks in 14 games, and enough strength to hold up against the run. This mock isn't flashy. It's not designed for hype, but it's smart. And if there's one lesson Chargers fans have learned the hard way, it's that smart teams usually go further than loud teams. And still, There's one more thing from today that has people irritated. Some lists feel like they exist just to poke a bruise. When a Chargers player gets pushed near the bottom, ignoring context, injuries, and what the tape actually showed, the reaction is immediate. Anger, doubt, and sometimes pure motivation. That's exactly what happened when Omarion Hampton showed up near the bottom of an NFL running back ranking and didn't even crack the top 32. Let's be real. Hampton never got a clean runway as a rookie. Injuries limited him to 9 games. He finished with 545 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on 4.4 yards per carry, plus 32 catches for 192 yards. And if you watched closely, like really watched, you saw the growth, the patience, the vision. Week 4 against the Giants, 128 yards, felt like the moment it was starting to turn. Then the fractured ankle wiped out 2 months. And then it happened again. Another ankle issue right before the playoffs. He was active for the wild card game, but logged 1 carry for -1 yard. That's not a he failed story. That's a he couldn't even be himself story. Maurice Jones-Drew's ranking leaned hard on availability, and sure, some of that is fair. You can't help the team from the sideline, but it's tough to take the list seriously when certain names are placed above Hampton that didn't have his explosiveness, his efficiency, or his upside. And here's the piece that gets brushed aside: the offensive line context. Hampton ran behind an offense that was constantly dealing with injuries and instability up front, and he still produced when he was on the field. Even the ranking points to the talent, calling him the most productive Chargers rookie back by yards per game since LaDainian Tomlinson. That's not nothing, but lists like that also send a message: you're not in that tier. And if there's one thing this locker room knows how to use, it's disrespect. So now you've got a young back who feels overlooked, an offense that might finally get a true elite play caller, a draft plan that screams protect Herbert, and a fan base that can sense momentum building even without anything being stamped official yet. It all connects, and that's where I'll leave it with you. Which of these storylines hits you the hardest right now? Do you think 2026 is the year the Chargers finally turn this into a real playoff run with Herbert at the center of it? Drop your take in the comments. Hit like if you're riding with the Bolt fam, and make sure you're subscribed, because this offseason is already moving, and the next domino could fall fast.